Hello, everyone. Sufit here. I'm here today with Charles B. Ticker, estate mediator and litigator. We're here because November is Make a Will Month, so declared by the Ontario Bar Association. It's been every November for some time now. And we are going to no doubt be bombarded with statistics about how many Canadians do not have wills, how many people do not have wills. But that's probably where it's going to stop. We're here today to go beyond that and discuss, okay, you're ready to make a will. What are some of the common pitfalls in making a will? And one of them may be that we're going to leave everything equally to our children. So, Mr. Ticker, is equal always considered fair by the siblings?
Equal does not necessarily mean equitable. So, well, one would think that if you leave everything equally to, let's say, four siblings in the will, what are they going to fight about? Everyone's getting an equal share. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. And I can, give a couple of scenarios to maybe give you an example. Let's say you have a situation where the child had received special treatment during the lifetime of the parents. Let's say their sister, Sally, and she and her husband were running a business and they ran into financial difficulty. They had a mortgage against the house and it was going to be called in and they were going to be foreclosed. And the parents say, we're going to give you $100,000 to pay off that debt so you don't lose your home. And then the parents die and the will leaves everything equally to the four kids. But they say, wait a minute, Sally got $100,000 more during her lifetime. How come, we're not getting the same? So that's one example. Another situation could be Brother Bob had a troubled youth and got into trouble with the law, and parents spend tens of thousands of dollars on criminal lawyers, on bail, on therapists. And then if Bob gets an equal share of the estate, his siblings might say, well, that's not fair. The parents spent tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars on him to get him out of trouble while they were alive. So there's an example of equal not necessarily being perceived as fair by the children beneficiaries.
So you're saying that the remaining siblings will say, well, you already got, Bob or whoever it is, or Sally, you already got yours during our parents' lifetime, so that should be deducted from what you get now. So if our parents leave it to us equally, that's not really fair. That's what you're saying?
Right. It's going to cause resentment, and at worst, it may cause litigation. There might be a fight over whether or not the money spent by the parents was intended to be paid back or not. So if that's the situation in that family, there should be clarification in the will as to what the intention is of the parent making the will.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. Can you give us maybe another scenario? We're going to do a series of these videos, by the way, so we'll get a couple of scenarios today, and then maybe next week we'll do a couple more, yes?
Of course. Another common scenario is where one of the children is maybe taking the sole responsibility for caregiving or the lion's share of the role of caregiver for an elderly parent who's not well. So very common example, you may have a sibling who is not married or is divorced and basically gives up her or his job to move in with the parent to look after that parent as a caregiver in the parent's home. And there may not be any discussion about it, but there might be an expectation on the part of that child that they're going to get some special recognition in the will. So when the will leaves everything equally to that child and the siblings, there's going to be resentment because the child is going to feel that they haven't been recognized for their contribution to the parent and the sacrifices they made while the parent was alive. So that will not be perceived as being fair or equitable
By that child.
by that child. And then when they raise the issue with their siblings saying, I think I should be compensated for what I did for mom or dad, typically the response will be, well, wait a minute, you got free room and board. we don't really care. You didn't have much of a life, but you had free room and board, and that's compensation enough. And no one forced you to do this, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll find in many cases, the other siblings aren't very receptive to recognizing the sibling who played a larger role in the care of the elderly parent. So that's a very common scenario that we see.
And what one can imagine also the other siblings saying, wait a minute, you want to be paid for taking care of our mom? Like she took care of you, she took care of us. So it almost
Exactly. You
adds,
have you
doesn't
have the
it?
nerve to ask to be compensated when it's your mother, and there may very well be legal rights to that person to be compensated, but that doesn't prevent the resentment and quite often litigation, unfortunately, over that issue.
So you see this in litigation, in mediation, siblings fighting about this?
Yes, this is a very common scenario, and once again, if the will was more clear as to the parent's intention, a lot of these disputes could be avoided. So in these sort of situations, it's important for the person making the will to share this information and background with the lawyer, and it's important for the lawyer to take the time to really drill down and get the family history and dynamic. So a lot of these issues could be avoided, with proper clarification in the will.
All right. Well, it's pretty clear that there are going to be siblings complaining if it's unequal in the will, if it appears to be unequal. But I'm sure a lot of our listeners would not have thought that leaving everything equally would cause a problem. So that's been very enlightening. Charles, thank you for your examples today. We're going to continue next week during Make a Will Month, and we'll get you to share with us another couple of scenarios. Charles B. Ticker, estate mediator and litigator, thank you very much.
My pleasure.